Very much, Anita. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as has been so eloquently announced by the MC, this session seeks to discuss the challenges that we face in the agriculture sector in the sub-region, which also impact food security. I will not speak much because the people that are here to speak are already on the panel. So we'll just go straight into action. We will be touching on climate change, on agri-tech, food production, agri-trade, agri-jobs, and agri-finance. To set the ball rolling, I would request our panelists, each one of them, to give their opening remarks of not more than 3 minutes before they field questions from the moderator. Thank you very much. We begin with Mr. Ugra, who's come all the way from India. Thank you, sir.
Is this working? Thank you, and a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this welcome. And I represent the Export-Import Bank of India here. The EBID has been a key partner for us, and Africa has been also a key partner in a larger sense for our bank for the last 4 decades, and we are very delighted to be a part of this interaction today. On the subject of ensuring food sufficiency in West Africa and building workable agricultural supply chains and security. As we know, the agricultural sector is the main job supplier in West Africa. It accounts for 66% of all employment in the region. Climate-related shocks, poor agricultural practices, high fertilizer prices, and multiple shocks from COVID-19 to the war in Ukraine, which affected food and fuel prices and spiraling inflation. They undermine food security in the region and have made its acuteness all the more apparent. The agri-food sector provides the region with good prospects for specialization. Opportunities exist for producing and processing of several indigenous and resilient agri-products. There is a need to attract investment in resilient food systems and infrastructure development, promote value addition, and foster job creation along the agricultural value chain. Investments are needed not only along several stages of the value chain, but also in research and development to increase yields and boost production of West African staples and vegetables. Harnessing the potential of technology to boost Africa's agricultural value chains is the need of the hour. Improving farmer skills, knowledge, and adoption of modern agricultural practices, as we have done in India. Training programs on post-harvest management, quality standards, and market requirements to produce high-quality goods are needed. Technology needs to be complemented by the necessary infrastructure, including reliable supply of energy, transportation networks, storage facilities, and cold storage chains. Improved infrastructure reduces post-harvest losses and facilitates timely delivery to markets. Next, building strong market linkages is essential also to connect farmers who could be in interior areas to buyers and consumers. Expanding financial services tailored to the specific needs of the agricultural sector, such as credit facilities, crop insurance, and warehouse receipt systems, can provide the necessary financial security for farmers and encourage investment in the sector. These were my opening thoughts, and I hand it over back to you, and looking forward to an interactive discussion.
Hello. Okay, good morning, everybody. And please allow me first to thank the organizers. Congratulations to Excellency President Dr. George Donkor and the amazing team that has put this event together. It saddens me sometimes when I hear people, especially in Africa, talking about opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. We young African people, African leaders, should stop talking about opportunities in Africa. The last 40 years, the last 50 years, we have been telling the same thing. Africa is currently importing $35 billion to feed its people. If we don't do nothing, it's going to be $120 billion. Ghana import $300 million only on chicken. Chicken is 80% of maize. The staple food of Ghana is kenke, made by maize. If they can grow maize, they should be able to produce chicken. Senegal import 1,070 billion CFA, 10 products to feed its people, against a national budget of 7 billion CFA. Apologies to say it very bluntly, it's a disgrace. We see the youth taking the ocean, risking their lives, where we can produce that food locally, create jobs, manufacture our agri-commodities, and create more value for the continent. Ivory Coast produce 1 million metric tons of cashew. 90% is exported raw. The last 40 years, people have been talking about opportunities. African people should stop talking about opportunities. Il y a l'adage français qui dit, le dire, c'est faire rire. Le faire, c'est faire taire. Permettez-moi de répéter.
There is an African adage that says, saying is to make people laugh, and doing is to make people keep quiet.
Opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. We have been educated in the same school, in the same graduate universities than the Western world. Why are we not making it happen? We keep on telling that there is no financial, rates are expenses, blah, 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 blah. Everywhere in Africa you see water, you see land. Please allow me to share a personal experience. I joined the West Africa region 4 years ago after working 25 years abroad. Please let me tell you, although I am a seasoned banker, for 25 years I have never ever bought one single financial stock. Just buy a bag of maize just after the harvest. Keep it 6 months. In every country you go in Africa, it grows at least by 25%. Buy a bag of peanuts just after the harvest. Keep it for 4 months, 6 months. It will grow by 25–30%. Why? Because of under planning. And I think banks like the ECOWAS and Investment Development Bank, under the leadership of Dr. Donkor, we have proven that the last 4 years, Africa can do it. We have mobilized close to $1.5 billion, dispersed $1 billion. It's a record-breaking event. And we have partnered through export credit agencies to do the financing, leveraging renewable energy, and to do what I call economy circulaire. And I strongly believe that we can do it. Let's just do it. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank EBID for putting together this wonderful event. It's an excellent opportunity. Even if my colleague says we should not be talking about opportunities in Africa, I beg his pardon to use the word at least. And I also would like to take a look at the theme that is bringing us together today. And I would like to talk about food security in the sub-region. This morning, across all the speeches, we heard the potential that we have, as well as the challenges the West African sub-region is facing in ensuring food security. In West Africa, we have about 267 million arable land, million acres of arable land, and it's only 10% of that land that is irrigated. And we do know today to what extent climate change is threatening the agricultural sector. And one of the adaptations ways where we can adapt is water mastery. About 700 million people in the sub-region are living in the sub-region, and that is an opportunity for us. And every year, we have about 38 million people who are faced with acute food insecurity situation. And the last figures that we have says that we have about 38 million people who are in acute food insecurity situation, as I said earlier. And if decisive measures are not taken by August, this number can go up to 52 million people, because by then, food stock will have been depleted. Agriculture in the sub-region is characterized with a lot of challenges, even if there are opportunities. It is estimated that the current state of agriculture in the sub-region is only exploring 25% of its potentials in the sub-region. Take a crop like maize. If you can have about 8 tons per hectare, we will be exploring only 2% of the potentials that we have. It means we still have a lot to do. And one of the pillars that the continent should look at carefully is innovative technologies in the agricultural sector, but also financing. And I believe along the panel discussion, we are going to be looking at agricultural financing, and that is what I really like to speak about. But before I leave the microphone, let me say that the agriculture that we have today, we need to work at it to make it more attractive, to make it more rewarding for the youth. Because if the youth today must take to agriculture, the agriculture must be attractive and the resources should be made available. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank the ECOWAS Investment and Development Bank for these wonderful initiatives they are taking, investing in Africa and trying to put agriculture at the forefront. Ensuring food security and having a workable agricultural supply chain is very essential. And for us to be able to succeed, we need actually to start by deploying production, processing, and marketing enhancing technologies. I come from a program, the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, and it's all about technologies. And how do we insert these technologies into the agricultural field? We use the value chain approach. So I think we have to use the value chain approach to make sure that these agricultural value chains are workable. The value chains would not just be at the level of the local countries, the local regions, but we should be able to regionalize the value chain. Getting the value chains to work across borders. Encouraging intra-African trade. You imagine that Africa imports $50 billion of food every year. Take the proportion to West Africa and see exactly how much we are importing. If we could sell amongst ourselves, if we could bring in technologies and invest in agricultural inputs, just for example, and don't import fertilizers, don't import seed, don't import processed food because we have transformed our agricultural food. You will imagine the amount of money we will be keeping here. So we have these opportunities to work with, and I think it is most important that we should work and build strong partnerships. To me, it's partnerships, linking the farmer in such a way that the farmer, who constitute more than 70% of our population in West Africa, is well positioned in this value chain. In such a way that the farmer's bargaining power is increased, in such a way that the products of the farmers can actually get to the market with high quality, good standards, attract the price and bring in income and change their lives. It is all about partnerships, it's all about partnerships, it's all about partnerships, it's all about linkages, it's all about effective linkages and effective linkages. It's all about attracting the private sector to come and invest here. It's not just an issue of the government, but we have the private sectors. I thank God I see a lot of private sector actors. I heard Vista talking, I heard Afri Exim Bank. The private sector needs to invest, and not investing in individual value chains locally, but investing in value chains across the borders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished gentlemen. Once we are done with the rounds up here, we will give the opportunity for the audience to also chime in with questions. Dr. Djiwa, taking off from where Dr. Mabouba left off, where he referenced leadership as a key element to solving our problems, our food security problems. Why do you think it has taken us so long for us to embed climate actions and climate mitigation actions into policy? And in your experience working with the FAO, how ready are we to combat the issue of climate change in agriculture?
Yeah, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour cette question.
Thank you very much for this question. Climate change, truly speaking, there are two factors that we talk about: temperature and the rainfalls. Either the temperature is becoming too high or rainfall patterns have changed drastically. Either they are not coming as usual or they come too much. And this can also lead to drought or flood. Today it is estimated that in Africa, close to 113 million people are suffering from climate impact. And mostly it is the poor people. In 2020, floodings caused by the overflow of the River Niger led to the overflooding of more than 10,000 acres. This is just a minute impact of climate change. In order for us to mitigate this climate change impact, our government must adopt innovative measures. In 2010, most countries have what we call the PANA, the National Adaptation Plans. But from 2015 onwards, most countries changed this to what we call long-term adaptation plans. And the focus was on agriculture sector. In the same agriculture sector, climate change adaptation programs can only be successful if we also combine this with technologies. Technologies that will make sure we are resilient, technology that will lead us to sustainable use of land, as well as information. We need information as well as knowledge sharing. In order for us to put in place systems that will give us early warning systems to inform the farmers as well as the herders. And the FAO supports countries in this regard. I want to take the case of Togo, for instance. Although the country has in place a sustainable adaptation program since 2015, based on the regional specifications as well as the decentralization program they have, FAO is currently supporting Togo in order for each of the 5 regions of the country to have its own adaptation programs. The program is such that the country will be able to zoom in on specific regions in order for them to have a smart adaptation program for them. This is why today we are promoting climate smart agriculture in Togo. You know, agriculture can also be seen as a victim. And this also contributes to the impact of climate change. That is why within the agriculture, we need to promote resource smart agriculture. This is what do I mean? What I mean is that we should not promote agriculture for the agriculture to create enemies for itself, for it not to progress. It means we need to promote, for instance, in the rice sector, we need to promote rice farming that will not introduce too much of chemical into the soil for other cycle to also be impacted. Now, when I talk about agriculture, I make reference to animal production, food production, fish production, as well as in fish farming. I'm talking about agriculture in all its ramifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ugra, he spoke about embedding technology in dealing with climate change. I'm very sure that India has some experiences, and your institution has also intervened in certain ways. Can you share those experiences with us?
Right. Well, India, again, a lot of commonalities with the developing world. We've had about 60% of our population dependent on agriculture, and much of this is located in interior areas. They were in the past disconnected from each other, and in the recent decade, a lot of work has gone into bringing them together and helping them work better. Using the climate-smart agriculture approach, India integrates the 3 dimensions of sustainable development, which is economic, social, and environmental, by jointly addressing food security and climate challenges. As early as 2011, India launched the National Innovations in Climate Resilient Agriculture to tackle climate variability by developing improved production and risk management technologies such as pest-resilient and drought-resistant crop varieties and carbon sequestration through the use of biochar. The National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture from the National Action Plan on Climate Change was operationalized in 2014. This promotes context-specific agricultural practices by focusing on soil health management, improved water reuse efficiency, optimal chemical use, and crop diversification. At the state level in India, Climate Resilient Agriculture Program has been promoting climate-resilient technologies like direct seeded rice, drum seeder, micro-irrigation, and nutrient support tools to improve production. In fact, I was very happy to hear Dr. Djiwa now almost echoing that Togo, for instance, is following a lot of the practices that we in India have also put into place. It's very heartening and encouraging to hear that. The increased usage of salt-tolerant rice and direct seeded rice, setting up climate-smart villages across various districts in India, implementing climate-smart practices such as laser land leveling and alternate wetting and drying of rice, using agro-advisories on farmers' mobile phones from relevant institutions. This has made a world of a difference. Using clean energy sources like solar power for irrigation, these are some of the recent innovations adopted by Indian farmers. The government of India has launched a mobile application. They call it Krishi Rath. And this helps in things like, hiring of trucks and transporting of agri-produce to the markets. And this sort of demonstrates that both the public sector and the private sector need to be cooperating and working together to ensure sustainable agriculture. India has also taken steps to promote production of climate-smart crops, particularly targeting dry lands and producing nutri cereals or coarse grains like millets. These require just about 30% of the water that is needed in rice production, and they can grow with little or no irrigation. Several stress-tolerant rice varieties were developed in India in collaboration with the International Rice Research Institute, which is in Philippines. These have been popularized in our neighboring countries, Nepal, Bangladesh, through an initiative called Seed Without Borders. And we are happy that later even other countries in South and Southeast Asia adopted these, as the countries have similar agroclimatic conditions. So our experience in producing agricultural products and allied services can prove to be a model in enhancing agricultural output in countries with different landscapes. India Exim Bank, whom I represent here, we are committed to the cause of Indian firms who would like to internationalize. And we encourage our companies, well, a lot of them are showing interest in non-traditional markets, and the agriculture and food processing space is one which is, it's still a small component of our business, but we can lend a variety of loans as well as give guarantee support. We can lend for investments by Indian companies into foreign territories. We have also launched a couple of years back an initiative called the Trade Assistance Program, which actually bridges the SME parties on either side. So we lend our weight, and we come into the picture where, say, a small bank in Africa who may not be recognized in India is the one opening an LC, and we provide our comfort. We can add a confirmation to the supplier on the Indian side, and to ensure that the transaction can actually come through. This is, as I said, a recent initiative. It's taken its footsteps, and we are hopeful that it will progress well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nsofon, you are the agri-tech person on the panel. You come from TAT. In the face of what India has done, leveraging agri-tech to improve food security, what types of agri-technology, specifically, what measures have your organization actually espoused to deal with food insecurity, particularly in this harsh reality of climate change?
Thank you very much, moderator. The Technologies for African Agricultural Research Technologies is actually a research and development program anchored on the Feed Africa strategy of the African Development Bank. And we leverage technologies from 11 of the 15 international agricultural research centers. These technologies are put onto an e-catalog. This e-catalog is online. If you open your phone and tap TAT Africa, you are going to get access to the e-catalogs. And like I say, we have two approaches. First approach is to ensure that we put technologies in large government initiatives, be them projects or programs or large government investments. And the second approach is bringing the private sector to invest in agriculture. You realize that if a government like the government of Togo decides to invest in a maize value chain project and has not got the right technologies, at the end of the project, 5-10 years afterwards, the farmer is going to be at 2 tons per hectare. So if you have the right technology, you can make a lot of change. So what are the technologies? Let's take the value chain approach. At the level of inputs, we make sure we bring the best inputs, beginning with seed. I liked when we're talking about climate change here, and Ugra was giving an example of Inga. It's all about improved seed. That's high yielding, crop resistant, but climate resistant. Adapting to the agroecologies. We are talking about a situation where we have to move from rain-fed agriculture into an agriculture that is more precise. So we bring the right technologies by bringing the right seeds, by bringing the right fertilizers, but it doesn't end there. Having these inputs and not having the best agricultural practices doesn't help. When we go on to processing, it is very strategic. Doing the right processing for the right markets is important. So we also have a myriad of technologies at the level of transformation that are brought at the level of the farmer. And we cannot talk today about technologies without talking about digital agriculture. I'm taking the case of in production, let me take rice advice. It's a technology developed by Africa Rice. And this technology, you have an app on your mobile phone that helps you to look at your field, get a picture of your field, and it gives you the problems you have, and you connect with an extension advisor, that's e-extension, and you have a feedback and the treatment to give to it. We have the cassava business connector. Cassava is a perishable crop. You harvest, and within 48 hours, if it's not transformed, it's finished. So the cassava business connector helps to link you to the transformer, it helps to link you to the market, and that is an IIT technology. Let me move on to marketing. We talk about Trace. Trace is an app that helps you in quality and standards. It gives you the standards in the international market. And so you can adjust, try to meet the standards, get advice on how to meet the standards so as to be competitive in the agricultural market. But with technologies, agriculture, we must be able to mechanize. Let me talk about mechanization. Halo Tractor is a wonderful technology. Halo Tractor is a technology like, it's an Uber in agriculture. You bring in Halo Tractor and we can mechanize African agriculture. You imagine our African farms are small size, and so each farmer cannot get a tractor. But it's a shared service. We talk about modern technologies like solar powered. We have abundant sun in West Africa. Why do we need a lot of energy to power our irrigation when we can use solar-powered irrigation? This is a technique that is used and so on. But fundamentally, I would say it begins with seed, which is 65%, and we are focusing on bringing the best high-yielding climate-resistant seeds, and when it comes to cereals, we use a lot of hybrids. Hybrids that move you from 2 tons to 7 tons, trying to meet the world average. So, and when it comes to situations like cassava, we have a rapid multiplication technique we call the SAR technology. The SAR technology, you are not going to go into a seed farm and grow cassava stalks, and one seed farm is going to take a whole year to give you 160,000 cuttings. But in a SAR technology, in a 1 meter square area, you are able to produce about 1 million plants in the laboratory. Imagine taking it. We have these examples, and it's actually transforming agriculture. I can take the ATA project, the Africa Agricultural Transformation Project in Congo. It is depending on the SaaS technology and producing millions and millions of technologies, seeds for farmers. I can talk about pre-cooked beans because transformation is capital. If we cannot transform, we cannot compete with the market. You produce, you lost. To reduce post-harvest losses, you need to transform, or you need to have a wonderful way of storage. When I talk about technologies when it comes to storage, I will take an example of a technology like picked bags. PIC is developed by a program of Purdue University in collaboration with the International Agricultural Research Centers, and it has hermetic bags that store grain in such a way that it is void of contact with moisture, diseases, pests, and so on, and you can store for a longer period. I like when the other panelist, I just lost the name, was talking about an issue of storing for a period of time to be able to control the market. We are supposed to move from just being price takers to price makers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for those of you who are wondering how you can improve on the value chain, agriculture value chain, you know who to contact. Dr. Mabouba, I've known you for about 4 years, and every time when you talk about agriculture, poultry never seems to be out of your mind or your mouth. What are the binding constraints to poultry production in the sub-region, and how can we work to improve that?
You know, to make a chicken, one chicken, it's 4 kilograms of feed. Out of that 4 kilograms of feed, 8% is maize. Look at Mali, Burkina. They don't have a lot of rain. I don't know if you realize they export maize to countries that have more rain. Ivorian, Senegalese, they buy maize from Mali and Burkina. It just tells you that it's about leadership. Let me take 2 more examples. Senegal import 1.5 million metric tons of rice. To stop importing 1 million metric tons of rice, you need to cultivate 300,000 hectares. To cultivate 300,000 hectares, you need to spend $2.1 billion. People may say it's a big number. At a country level, it's not a big number. Take $2.1 billion, you divide it into 10 years. If you are ambitious, you can divide it by 5 years. But let's take 10 years. It's $210 million. What is $210 million at a country level? Nothing. To cultivate 300,000 hectares, imagine you divide it by plots of 5 hectares, 10 hectares. And you make agriculture smart, because these young people, if you want to create jobs for the youth and drive them into agriculture, you need to do smart agriculture. Drip irrigation, where all the land is managed through their mobile phone. And it's been done. Not only in Israel, like people may think, Nigeria is doing it into their rice farming infrastructure. Today, cashew. You export 1 million metric tons, 90% raw, at the price of 400 CFA the kilogram. 400 CFA multiplied by 1 million metric tons, it's 400 billion. 400 billion CFA is less than $625 million. The ECOWAS Investment and Development Bank has financed cashew manufacturing factories. When the Vice President of EBID and myself, we went and visited the factories, we saw more than 300, 400 women walking into that factory. Can you imagine now, 1 million metric tons divided by 4, you need 4 kilograms of raw to produce 1 kilogram of clean exportable cashew. That costs $6,000 a ton. 1 million metric tons divided by 4 multiplied by 6,000. It's $1.2 billion. You move from $625 million to $1.5 billion of value. You need to build less than 50 factories. Multiplied by 300 jobs, it's 15,000 youth jobs that you are creating. I think that this is, if the African leaders want to create jobs for the youth, they must leverage technology, they must use agriculture, they must beneficiate the agriculture. Look at Ghana, cocoa. Since I have been a young banker, I keep on hearing that the Ghana Cocoa Board Syndicate, a syndicated loan facility that comes every year. If you see the amount of cacao that is manufactured locally in Ghana, it's relatively modest compared to what it should be. Africa must understand that importing food is exporting jobs. Importing food is exporting jobs. Let me give you another example. Senegal import 450,000 metric tons of maize. To produce 450,000 metric tons of maize, it's 90,000 hectares that you need to cultivate. And there I am even being conservative, because I'm assuming that they yield 5 metric tons per hectare. In Argentina, they make currently 8. In Canada, they make 13. In the US recently, they break a record by making 18 metric tons per hectare. Leveraging technology, getting good seed, as you say it. And African government and our development banks, including ours, must start supporting agri-infrastructure. In Africa, when people are talking about infrastructure, they just think it's about building roads, building bridges. No. If you go to Israel, government will come, do the land aménagement de la terre, they will bring irrigation, and they now tell the private sector, come and cultivate. I have illustrated through this example, Dr. Asenso, that you can create thousands of jobs, feed our people, and this should be our priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mabouba. Mr. Djiwa, Dr. Mabouba spoke about cereals. About 6 billion deficits exist in terms of ECOWAS trade in cereals with the BRICS. About 70% with the BRICS, with Europe, and then with the US. We import about $4 billion of rice to the sub-region every year. And last year, when India decided to place an embargo on rice exports, we started to shake, and prices actually went up. Are there any success stories in the sub-region amongst the 15 countries that we can all learn from, given your expertise and your organization's mandate?
Thank you very much. Let me continue in French. Yeah. La production de céréales
Production of cereals in Africa is estimated around 117 million tons per year. And this figure is being decreased by 1.6% according to 2022 figures. This is due to all the problems that we have discussed over here. In terms of West Africa, for instance, we are about 77 million tons of cereal produced during the last farming season. And there is also a decrease, which is 0.6% decrease compared to the previous production year. Now, I want to take rice, for instance. There is something to observe. Our sub-region has produced 27 million tons of rice, and that is a record-breaking harvest for West Africa. The previous farming season saw a lot of rice production, and this is because, one, the climate was very conducive, as well as a number of policies taken by some government in the sub-region. Another example that I can make reference to are the policies taken by Nigeria. Nigeria is a champion in producing rice in Africa. In fact, they are the first rice-producing country. Nigeria moved from 3 million tons in the early 2000s to this year. We are talking about more than 50 million tons of rice, followed by Guinea. You want me to give you examples, so I'm giving you the examples. We can also talk about Mali. Cote d'Ivoire has also invested a lot in rice production. I can also mention Senegal. These are some 5 West African countries that are investing in rice production, and the yield are talking about their investment. We can also mention some policies in Togo and Ghana. But the lessons that we can learn from this is that, just as most of my colleagues have said, that these countries put in place reforms. They have invested in the agricultural sector, especially in irrigation. Especially, they took decisive policies to protect the rice subsector by ensuring that they put in place rice processing plants across the respective countries. Now, these are examples, but we can do better so that we can turn the trend of always importing rice, and that importation of rice is causing a lot of damage to our economies. I can mention a lot of other examples, but let me talk about poultry. Cote d'Ivoire is another example that we can learn from. Cote d'Ivoire moved from 80 million of investment into the poultry sector in the early 2000s to 250 billion CFA francs in 2022-2021. Today, Côte d'Ivoire is one of the few countries where the country's demand of poultry is locally provided. Now, what did Côte d'Ivoire do differently? They put in place policies and strategies. Especially, they promoted private investment in the poultry subsector. Just as my colleague said, from day-old poultry production, day-old chicks, from the brooder houses to the hatcheries, they have promoted all these subsectors so that when you go to Côte d'Ivoire today, when you are enjoying chicken, you know you are enjoying made in Côte d'Ivoire chicken. They've also promoted competitivity in that country. Somebody said, in order for you to produce poultry, you need to promote the production of cereals and grains. And it is that will let you have feed to be able to produce poultry. And Côte d'Ivoire put in place measures to promote the production of cereals. And what they did was that they also increased tax on any production, importation of poultry coming into the country in order to promote locally produced poultry. Togo is also going in the same direction. When you go deep in the hinterland of Togo, in a town called Oyétoundé, there is a government policy project there where they are promoting the production of day-old chicken. They are also promoting brooder houses in order for the country to promote its own chicken and feed its own people. And the aim is to produce 50 million chicken multiplied by 10 within the next 2 years to multiply the figure in the next 5 years. You see, investing in smart agriculture cannot be done only by the government. The private sector has a significant role to play. And what the government can do is to create the enabling environment. You should understand that the private sector is looking at the figures. If I have to produce, put up a plant to produce hatchery, I must look at electricity. But if there is no electricity, how can a private man come and invest in such an infrastructure? But if there is road, there is electricity, there's water nearby, the conducive environment is already provided. So I am very happy that this forum is being organized, and I know EBID is present in all West African sub-region. EBID should take the forefront in investing into agriculture. EBID should know that we can transform the agriculture in the sub-region. Thank you.
I can assure you that EBID is doing exactly that. We are taking baby steps, but we'll get there. Mr. Ugra, India is such a key exporter on the global front. How did India become such a dominant force in global rice trade?
Yeah, this story goes back several decades. India became an independent country in 1947, and poverty and hunger were very real issues at that time. And right till the mid-1960s, we were a country which faced food shortage. So from a food shortage in 1964 to becoming a food grain surplus nation, today we have really come a long way. The initial credit goes to something called the Green Revolution that was launched in the latter half of the 1960s to encourage more and more land to be brought under cultivation. Rice-based farming is actually the main economic activity of millions of rural farmers in India. Now, productivity has increased steadily and significantly since India's independence. And then in the last, say, decade and a half, since 2010, we have been self-sufficient in food grain production and produced a paddy surplus. The cultivation of the high-yielding rice varieties has now made India the second largest producer of rice in the world after China. And nearly 85 to 90% of India's rice is now covered with these high-yielding varieties. So on an average, the Indian farmers replace paddy seeds with newly purchased certified seeds once in 2 to 3 years. So the seed replacement rate is around 40% in India. Paddy farmers adopt integrated pest and disease management practices against major pests and diseases, insect pests and diseases. And this has resulted in the rice production in India increasing by 3.5 times in the last 60 years. We also have put in place an efficient paddy procurement system. So paddy is purchased at a minimum support price directly from the farmers by an organization called the Food Corporation of India, and also by the various state government agencies for a central pool, which is the central pool is a stock of paddy that's procured both by our central government and the state governments. The central government then reimburses the state government agencies for the cost of their procurement. And this decentralization has reduced transport costs and increased procurement efficiency. A significant increase in rice production supported by improved technologies and farm management practices, upgrading of the post-harvest systems, improved value addition, and wider marketing have made India a major rice exporter today. Favorable trade policy, licensing procedures for agricultural exports, and private sector efforts to promote rice exports have all together contributed to this phenomenon. Due to the high production capacities now, the country has gained high export potential and it supplies rice to over 150 countries. The high domestic stock and low local prices have allowed India to offer rice at discounts also to several developing countries. West Africa, incidentally, accounted in 2022, it was 21% of India's rice exports. So there was Benin, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and Guinea, which were our major markets for rice exports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mabouba, one of the elements of farming which we have all referenced to is fertilizer. We run a deficit of about $500 million. And counting. With the increased capacity, production capacity in the sub-region, we can reference Nigeria and Ghana. How can we, as a DFI, help improve fertilizer supply so that we can improve food security in the sub-region?
Okay, many thanks. You know, when we talk about agri-commodities, especially the agri-inputs, fertilizer, if you allow me, Dr. Asenso, is one component. Seed, especially good seed, pesticide, hence with the training, a sophisticated training of the farmer is of absolute importance. But let me get back to fertilizer. And I'm glad to see here that the president of the West Africa Fertilizer Association is in the room. You know, 4 years ago, the ECOWAS Investment and Development Bank embarked into a very ambitious fertilizer trade finance program. Under the leadership of the Donkor and the management team, we mobilized close to $420 million of trade finance line. We mobilized more than $100 million of capex and wanted to support the fertilizer trader. At the end, less than $20 million was spent. Did you hear what I said? $420 million was mobilized in trade finance line. More than $100 million of capex through ECA financing line mobilized. At the end, less than $20 million was spent. Why? Most of our fertilizer traders, their balance sheets are relatively very weak. If you see the big boys that do fertilizer, YERA, Export Trading Group, OCP, most of them, they have manufacturing platform. I think that it's time that West Africa select those countries that have phosphate, like Togo, and get together. Instead of each country trying to do his small factory, I would think that it's time to have what I will call manufacturing hub. Togo has phosphate. Let all ECOWAS get together, maybe through the ECOWAS Commission, maybe through the ECOWAS Investment and Development Bank, pour $500 million, $300 million, build a Dangote-type fertilizer plant, support Togo, and make Togo a fertilizer hub. This is number one. The Francophonie invited me as a speaker to go to Vietnam. I was very, very surprised how a small country like Vietnam is exporting rice. I visited a poultry farm, but a very sophisticated one. The guy is telling me that through our integrated poultry farm, we are producing 50,000 metric tons of chicken manure. But we use the rice husk, mix it with chicken manure, and produce 250,000 metric tons of organo-mineral fertilizer. Did you hear what I said? He has 50,000 of chicken manure. He uses the rice husk and do what they call, I don't know how to call it in good English, compostage. How do you say compost in English? Compost, right? He used 50,000 metric tons of chicken manure. He composted and obtained 250,000 metric tons of compost. And with that compost, they don't need fertilizer. To tell you how big is 250,000 metric tons, the whole government subsidy program of fertilizer of Senegal does not exceed 150,000. And this is what I call, c'est de l'économie circulaire. You know what, and I am so sad and mixed when our Indian friend is telling me 1960 there was food shortage in India. 1960 was the year Senegal get independence. So who to blame? Not the Western world. Who to blame? Not the financial institutions. Who to blame is ourselves. You know, sometimes when I take the plane and I come to Lomé, or I go to Ivory Coast, or I go to Senegal, there is a flat land. And everywhere you go in Africa, you dig more than 500 meters, you get water. If Nigeria can get the oil almost 1,000 kilometers down the ground, we should be able to get water 500 meters. And I strongly do believe that if we put the finances together, and we have it, we have a AAA rated institution called African Development Bank. We have BOAD, an investment grade. We have EBID. We have Afri-Exim Bank. We have AFC. Money should not be the problem if our leaders and the management of the region are putting things at the way it should be. Burkina Faso, they have phosphate. And Dangote has shown that if the private sector is willing to do big things, supported by DFIs like EBID, like Afri-Exim, like BOAD, like African Development Bank, we can pull all the financial resources to make it happen. If I'm not mistaken, Nigeria is barely importing fertilizer now. Why? Because 15, 20 years ago, Excellency Obasanjo wake up one day and say, you should stop, and it has stopped. And I think that I strongly believe that if the region mobilizes the financial resources, the willingness, the regional willingness to make it happen, it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have just about 15 minutes to wrap up. Mr. Nsofon, after Africa Continental Free Trade Area, how can we leverage that to improve agriculture trade and to reduce hunger in the sub-region?
Yeah, The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a wonderful opportunity, especially when we consider that in 2030 we'll be talking about 1.7 billion people here. We'll be talking about 6.7 trillion US dollars in business within that area. So today we import 50 billion US dollars. If we could start even at this level by keeping that in Africa. We are talking about production of fertilizers. It takes just about 400 million US dollars to have a fertilizer company, but you know what it means? It takes billions to import fertilizers into Africa. So if we could start by producing, Africa needs to feed Africa. We have in the TAD and the CG centers, we have the right technologies. If the private sector could come on and invest by collecting these seeds, producing hybrid seeds, and that is sold in Africa, because one of the problems of productivity in Africa is, one of the problems of trade in Africa is low productivity to begin with. And we import these inputs, including fertilizers, including seed, hybrid seeds. And each time we import, we are importing, you can imagine, jobs, we are losing money. So if we could come and adopt the right technologies, seed technologies, produce hybrid seed technologies, it takes the African private sector to come and invest in this. We invest in it and import to other African countries. I want to take an example of wheat. Wheat is a myth in Africa because we believe that wheat could only be produced out of Africa. But the war between Ukraine and Russia has taught us that we have to start fending for ourselves. And so what happened? With the research that we have been doing with ECOWAS, we were able to identify seed varieties that are good and drought-tolerant, heat-tolerant seed varieties, and they are being produced. Produced in Asia, produced in Ethiopia, produced in Sudan, and is now being exported. And it's even being produced in Nigeria, produced in Tanzania. So we have to produce ourselves. Another issue is being able to transform, because we're talking about the value chain approach, adding value to what we produce. Transforming by having this private sector. I still am a private sector person, so I'll talk private sector. Having the private sector to come and invest, public-private partnerships or direct private sector investment in special agro-processing zones, industrial parks, so that we are able to produce and transform what we produce in Africa. If we do not produce and transform our African agricultural products, we'll keep importing. And when we produce, we transform, and we can sell within us in Africa. But for us to be able to sell, I talked about regionalizing value chains. And to regionalize the value chains, we have to move forward. Just in ECOWAS, I can imagine the number of initiatives and instruments that we have to take away trade barriers and tariffs. We need to make it a little bit more effective so that goods can move. You imagine how long it takes for a perishable good to move across a border in West Africa. If we can reduce the time, you imagine what it's going to bring. We have to promote cross-border trade. Make it fast and fluid so that there is flow of agricultural products. It comes to infrastructure. I want to go to specific infrastructure. If you store maize wrongly, it develops aflatoxins. It is not good. We need quality. So we transform, but we need specialized storage facilities. Sometimes it's not easy for the smallholder African farmer to do it, so the government needs to step in with certain type of infrastructures. Beyond roads, helping in the agro-processing zones, helping even the small farmers, within maybe cooperatives to have small processing units, but most especially having specialized storage units so that they can store their products, they can go on to negotiate across borders, contract farming, future farming, and then negotiate prices and become price makers too. Integrating the value chain, but looking. And then information is key, market information systems. We have information, we have more information about what is produced out of Africa than what is produced within Africa. But I like what the panelists here are saying, because we are demonstrating that Nigeria has a market for this. It consumes a lot of rice. You can imagine we produce a lot of rice in West Africa. But thanks to the information we have now, we are even exporting some of this rice even to East Africa. And beyond that, we are telling them that while you export, it's a short-term solution. Even export the best seeds to East Africa and so on. West Africa is producing where we're taking good material. Just taking seed from one part of Africa to another is also a difficult issue because of the phytosanitary restrictions that exist. So we have to be able to put in place good phytosanitary measures, good initiatives that help us to understand the standards and quality of agricultural products, agricultural inputs, and be able to move them across the border. This is essential for us to be able to take this opportunity that African continental free trade area is offering us.
Thank you very much. We would like to take some questions from the audience, if there are any. Yes, can we send the microphones to the back? We'll take 3 to begin with, and then we'll take another 3, and then we'll wrap up. There is a hand at the back. Oh.
Can I go ahead and ask a question? Thank you. My name is Danjuma Adejo. I'm a technical advisor on agriculture to the Benue State governor. He's a subnational in Nigeria. Mr. Nsofon, I want to ask you a few questions because I'm conversant with the TAT program. I followed it through the inception, the development from IITA in Ibadan through to the work you did with Lake Chad Research Institute in developing the various varieties of the wheat that is being propagated along Nigeria from the northwest to the northeast of Nigeria. And I'm also aware of what you did, the TAT did for rice as well, through the Africa Rice programs. I'm also aware of what you did with the cassava new variety, 10 ton per hectare.
Please go ahead and ask the question. Yes. We don't really have much time.
Yes, oh, sorry. So I wanted to ask, how do the subnationals in the different countries access this special assistance on this program to help its farmers, I mean the subsistence farmers and even industrial farmers in propagating these new technologies? Thank you.
Yes, right in front here. Right in front here. Please, can I get the microphone here?
Kande Yumkela. Dr. Bao, I'm still curious about the Côte d'Ivoire story. #1 in cashew now in Africa, #1 in cocoa, and I think #3 in coffee. What is holding them back from adding value? For example, for chocolates, for finishing off the cashew products instead of shipping over to our brother there in India to finish off for them. What is holding them back? I don't know, because they have all the raw materials, right? Ghana is also not far behind in all those 3 commodities. What do you think is the main constraint? And the last question I also have for you as well, the fertilizer story. You know, I've been in conferences now where we say for Africa, fertilizer is an emergency. So why aren't we treating it like COVID vaccine? I've been in panels with Vera Zongwe. At one time, we were both advocating that we treat the fertilizer issue the same concentrated way as we were looking at vaccines. So if you are based in Togo, why aren't you making Togo the hub? What does it take to bring Dangote here is the fundamental question.
Last question. Can I get a lady? Is there a lady that would like to ask a question? The Anini. So please give the microphone to him. Yes.
Bonsoir à tous.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Steve Oda. I come from Benin. I am a owner of a startup called Afro Group. And what we do is to propose integrated solutions to all agricultural value chain, talking about warehousing, talking about marketing, and so on and so forth. But before I ask my question, I would like to thank Dr. Diagne, because he has told us the truth. When we talk about ECOWAS, we always speak at the macro level, but the micro level, we forget, especially the local startups. What is the position of our big institutions like EBID towards startups? What is there for the youth who want to venture into agriculture to promote them? We always talk about the macro level. We spoke about the big boys. But what about the young guy or the young lady there who want to go into agriculture? What is ECOWAS doing to encourage them by providing them with funding? My good friend from India, what has India done differently in encouraging the youth to promoting youth agriculture? Because from your own submission, 60 years down the line, India was in the same soup as we are today. Thank you.
Well, if we can take the questions.
Okay, let me tell you first what a country like Germany did 27 years ago. Do you know that in Germany, 80% of the tax collected by government is coming from small, medium-sized enterprises? 80%. In Africa, it's the reverse. In Africa, government is collecting 80% of its tax from big companies. This is where we first get it wrong. And when our friend from Nigeria was talking about the value chain, let me illustrate before getting back to your question. You go to a city called Mannheim in Germany. Do you know the large chemical group BASF? BASF is a large chemical conglomerate. BASF almost made the city of Mannheim. He created the company, and they created thousands of small, medium-sized enterprises connecting into the value chain of BASF. If you have an order, if you are a small and medium-sized company, you get a purchase order to sell paper toilet, whatever, to a big company. With that purchase order, any bank can finance you, because you can do supply finance and invoice discounting at the same time. What Germany did to support the small and medium-sized enterprises is they created what they call the Promise Program. In the Promise Program, where the German government is basically telling to the development banks like KfW, ACA Bank, finance the small and medium-sized enterprises. I will give you a first loss guarantee of 20–30%. But to make sure that you are a responsible lender, the first equity piece of 10–15%, you take it. This is something that the ECOWAS can do. Maybe at the government level, create an SME fund at the ECOWAS level, support a bank like ECOWAS Development Bank to raise financing on behalf of ECOWAS, on behalf of the states, and use that fund has a cushion, has a first loss equity piece guarantee. This can be structured that way. Number two, and sorry to say it, when government orders fertilizer or agri inputs, they tend to do it from big companies. And I'm glad to see countries like Benin having agri startup companies try to link up the value chain. Number three, and it's not a criticism that I'm making to the African Development Bank, but this is a bank and apologies to say it openly, who can print money. And what do I mean by African Development Bank can print money? It's a AAA rated institution. When you are a AAA rated institution, you raise money at the cheapest, lowest level possible. The ECOWAS, the African Union can tell the African Development Bank, go and raise $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion on our behalf. Use it as a guarantee, a cash collateral guarantee, and let's support SMEs, MMEs across the agri-value chain. But in order to make those SMEs not defaulting, we go back to what our Nigerian friends were saying. Government, trade blocks like ECOWAS, trade blocks like the COMESA, investing in agri-infrastructure, making the land, bringing the water, and implementing what Malawi, Zimbabwe did in Zambia through what I call the FISIP program. FISIP is Farmers Input Supply Program. If you see Zimbabwe, they no longer import maize. Zambia, they no longer import maize. Malawi, they no longer import maize. Why? Because 10 years back, 15 years back, the government implemented a Farmers Input Supply Program. And they also did leverage technology. Now the farmers can receive his agri-input vouchers and can go to any agro dealers, collect agri-inputs and not money. And sorry to say it, for example, in a country like Senegal, we see Senegalese government subsidizing fertilizer. 1 month later, if you go to the border between Mauritania and you go to Rosso, you see the fertilizer crossing the river. In Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, the way they solve it is through technology. Now, getting back to your question. For me, I believe that industrialization is a solution. But it's easy to say than to do. What me as a senior seasoned banker, what I'm struggling to understand. Today, if there is one thing that is relatively easy to get, is to finance machinery. Machinery is the easiest thing to finance these days through export credit agencies. All the countries, India, Europe, the US, they all want to sell you machinery. I recently helped the Senegalese government to raise $120 million, fully funded. And usually when you do an export credit agency financing deal, they ask you 15% or today, the OECD countries, they push up the ECA financing cover up to 95%. Et je lance un appel aux pays africains, je lance un appel aux pays de la CEDEAO. Utilisez cette opportunité pour industrialiser.
Use this opportunity to industrialize African country. We are producing raw materials and we have the raw materials. Take a country like Guinea, for instance. Guinea produces bauxite. Saudi Arabians come to buy the bauxite. Look at the itinerary that it does to go to Saudi Arabia, transform it, and then export it back. Nigeria produces gas. Why is it that ECOWAS cannot leverage on that of Nigeria, where we are producing? Ask Nigeria, ask Cote d'Ivoire, why don't we produce more power and export the power to Guinea so that Guinea can build cement factories to produce more cement? This will be difficult, and I am calling upon our leaders to think about industrializing Africa. The expertise is there today. The African youth have been trained in the best universities across the world, and we have worked in the best institutions with the whites. Therefore, the expertise is there. We have all it takes for us to transform Africa. Maybe the only thing missing is the political will.
How do subnationals access your technologies?
Okay, merci. Yes, to respond to the question on how you get to contact TAT, I send you to a website. Just type on Google TAT Africa. TAT is T-A-A-T Africa. You get into the website, you go to e-catalogs, E and then catalogs, and you touch, you go and you see a myriad of more than 150 technologies. If you touch any technology that is of interest to you and go right to the bottom, there is an email address. The email address gets directly to us. The email is TECHS, TECHS @tatafrica.org. You just click on the email and you write to us and we can get to you. For more information, you can contact me and I will give you the direct link. You can scan the link and access it anytime you want. We are there and we are going to link you to the best technology providers, to the large government initiatives in your area and connect you to the right markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to end it here. We are 40 minutes behind time. So thank you very much, panelists. Thank you very much, audience, for your cooperation.
Yes, a picture for panelists, please.